Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cakeman Entertainment, and today I'm going to be reacting to something a little bit different. All the time, well, all of the time, yeah, really, I have been reacting to movies, TV shows, trailers, stuff like that. But I thought I'd get into something a bit more relative to myself. Obviously, I'll still be reacting to the stuff like TV shows and movies, but I've been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson stuff and similar models of him, like similar people like him, but a lot of his stuff. And I thought I'd try to properly get into each of his, not lectures, but the videos that are out there on YouTube, and try and go through each of those lessons in complete parts. Obviously, I've seen a lot of it on TikTok, like parts of it, a little bit here, a little bit there. But I thought I'd try and properly get into it because um, I believe his content will be quite relevant for me. It definitely seems like it, at least on the TikTok stuff. But I want to see it for myself now on a full scale level, like a full video level, and break it down. So we'll try and go through as many of the Jordan Peterson videos as I can, all the ones I find on YouTube. If you want to suggest some below, I'll react to those too. And yeah, just I guess a bit of background on me. I am obviously male. I'm 21 years old, so um, a lot of his messages are for younger men, from what I've seen. So I'm pretty sure it'll be quite relevant to me. And yeah, I'll share my thoughts and pause throughout the video too, to I guess avoid copyright for one, but also share my thoughts on how relevant his stuff is to me, and if it's relevant to you as well. Yeah, be sure to comment below what you think of what he's talking about. So I'll get into it now.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of strange things, things that I don't really understand. The first is, when we've done the analysis of the effects of the future authoring program, it has had a differential impact on men. And it's had a particularly differential impact on what I would call excluded men. And so that would be non-Western ethnic minority men, or what, majority men who aren't doing very well. So for example, at Mohawk College, the future authoring program had a particularly robust effect on Mohawk College students who were men who hadn't done very well in high school and who hadn't picked a major that had a destination, a career destination at its end. So you can imagine those people they have an ambiguous relationship with the idea of education. And they're not oriented specifically towards a goal. They're not very motivated. Now, why did it have a differential effect on men? That's a good question. Well, first of all, the women are doing better. So it might just be a matter of the fact that it does better for people who aren't doing as well, and at the moment most of them are men. I think that might be part of it. But I don't believe that's all of it. I think that part of the reason that women are doing better is because they're agreeable. And so if the system sets out a structure and says, here's a pathway to attainment, the women won't rebel against that. They'll go along with it. And that
I haven't seen like what happens after this, but I believe I've seen another lecture, or not lecture, another debate where he's saying how women are more agreeable. Like especially there's like curves where the extremity of or the most agreeable people are all women, and the most disagreeable people are all men. That's also why most of the people who are in prison are men, because disagreeability leads to that crime rate. I definitely remember that stuff that he said in another interview. I'm not sure if he'll go through that here too. I wonder if that's a biological aspect, that women are naturally more agreeable, men are naturally not as agreeable. Is that a biological trait, or is that something that's just been pushed into our society? Yeah, not too sure. I'll continue with the video though.
That's working very well for them at the moment. The men, especially the men on the disagreeable end of the distribution, and there's way more men on the disagreeable end of the
he's going through it right now.
There are women, right? That's what you get from, if you look at overlapping normal distributions. So there's the female distribution for agreeableness, male distribution for agreeableness. Tremendous overlap.
So less agreeable on this side and more agreeable on this side.
All the really agreeable people are women. All the really disagreeable people are men. And maybe the real differences occur at the extremes, right? And it's a very interesting side effect of overlapping distributions.
Like from what we learned in maths.
People can be mostly the same, but that can still produce radical differences. Disagreeable men won't do anything they don't want to do. they just say, up yours. I'll go home and play video games. I'm not listening to your stupid classes. And why should I work for you? I'll just go have fun.
He's not wrong.
I'll do my own thing. I don't think they're motivated. And so then if you take the men who are like that and you say, okay, what do you want? You can have what you want, but you have.
Yeah, very interestingly, he says that aspect they just said there about disagreeable men, saying that they'll just play video, like if they don't want to do something, they won't do it, and they'll just play video games all day. And I'm guessing he's gonna lead that into that's why men get depressed and stuff, because they don't want to, they don't know their purpose possibly. Yeah, that's a very common problem. If I don't know if you're my age as a viewer or if you're older than me, but that's a very common problem in society at my age. There are a lot of men, including myself, don't really know what our true purpose is, as the video states, the meaning of life for men, because there's a lot of distractions out there. And yeah, video games, they can be good to a minimum amount, but yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are absolutely addicted. I've had a period where that's been the case as well. I won't lie about it. I want to make sure I'm honest in these videos to you guys as well. But yeah, I've obviously had periods where I've like played way more than I should have, and I don't think that did me any good at all. There's a lot of people just really, yeah, they go to uni and whatever. Like at my age, they go to uni and they come home and they just play games for like 10 hours and they're just addicted to games and they can't stop. They just keep going and they're not really progressing with their life at all, right? They're sort of stuck in a loop, if that makes sense. But yeah, we'll see where he goes from here.
Figure out what it is. So then they write down what they want and they think, oh, hey, well, that might be worth having, so maybe I'll put some effort into it. That's what it looks like to me. Now, that's weak evidence, and this is a weak argument, but I'm trying to stretch out my understanding to account for this. But I'll tell you something else that's really weird. I don't understand this either. So more than 90% of the people who watch my videos on YouTube are men. Now that's weird because about 80% of psychology students are women. So that is not what you would expect, right? You would expect
and he's a psychologist,
the majority of them would be women. And you might say, well, it's because of the political stance I've taken. And I thought, well, that's possible. So I went and looked at the demographic data because I have that. Well, before I did any of the political videos, 85% of my viewers were men. So it's actually increased
not much
a bit.
difference.
It's increased by 6%.
The politics actually didn't affect them that
trivial,
much.
but it was still overwhelmingly men.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I thought, what the hell? Why is that exactly? And then now I've been watching crowds when I've been talking to them. And the crowds that have come to see me in person. This happened at the University of Toronto free speech debate. And I actually noticed it and commented on it before the debate took place because I was talking about intrinsic differences between men and women. And I looked around the room and I thought, hey, 80% of the people in this room are men. So I had all the women stand up and then all the men stand up. I said, look, like, here's a natural experiment. For some reason, 80% of the people who showed up to this are men. Now, everybody thought I was kind of cracked to do that. And it was a risk, but I thought, no, there's something going on here. And then
I'll stop that there because I love how his brain works. Like, a lot of people, if they're in his similar position, they wouldn't worry about who their followers are. They'd just be happy that they have that amount of following, because obviously he's quite famous. They wouldn't be trying to break down why they have 80% men following or 90% men following, 10% women. They just be like, oh, whatever, I have 5 million followers. That's all I want, right? I just want more and more followers. I don't want to know why I have those followers. But the fact that he's questioning his own followers shows that he's really there to learn. And he, well, as you can tell by the way he talks, he wants to know, he wants to gain more knowledge about people, because he is, at the end of the day, a psychologist. So that is his goal. Yeah.
And what's interesting now is that every public appearance that I've made that's related to the sort of topics that we're discussing is overwhelmingly men. It's like 85 to 90%. And so I thought, wow, that's weird. Like, what the hell's going on here exactly? And then the other thing I've noticed is that I've been talking a lot to the crowds that I've been talking to, not about rights, but about responsibility, right? Because you can't have the bloody conversation. What are you doing? You can't have the conversation about rights without the conversation about responsibility, because Your rights are my responsibility. That's what they are, technically. So
okay.
you just can't have only half of that discussion. And we're only having half
very
that
true.
discussion. And the question is, well, what the hell are you leaving out if you only have that half of the discussion? And the answer is, well, you're leaving out responsibility. And then the question is, well, what are you leaving out if you're leaving out responsibility? And the answer might be, well, maybe you're leaving out the meaning of life. That's what it looks like to me. It's like...
yeah, okay, I gotta pause it there. That was a big bit of dropping of statements there, that you can't have rights without responsibilities. Yes, that is ever apparent in our society today, isn't it? That everyone's looking for their rights. Oh yeah, I have the right to do this, I have the right to be treated like this, I have the right for this, that, this. It is true what he says. It's all about rights. We're just learning one side of the coin, but we're not learning the other side, which is responsibility. Responsibility is a huge aspect to those rights. And I guess responsibility probably can lead to lack of responsibility leads to lack of accountability. And that is why there's a lot of playing the victim in our society. A lot of people do that. And I'm not trying to sit all high and mighty here and saying I haven't done that. Everyone has probably, a lot of people have done that. You watching have probably done it too. But a lot of people have played the victim card and try to be like, oh yeah, society should owe me this, society owes me that. But it's not true. You should have the responsibility to go out there and get it yourself. Yeah, fighting for rights, obviously, it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying don't fight for your rights, but look at the holistic view with the responsibility aspect. So you're not just fighting for unnecessary rights that you don't even need. You need to gain some responsibility for that. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Here you are, suffering away. What makes it worthwhile? Rights? You know, you're completely out. You have no idea what it's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is. Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load.
Yeah.
Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect? That's the story of the fall. Pick something up and carry it. Make it heavy enough so that you can think, yeah, well, useless as I am, at least I could move that from there to there. Well, what's really cool about that is that when I talk to these crowds about this, the men's eyes light up. And that's very, like I've seen that phenomenon because I've been talking about this mythological material for a long time. And I can see when I'm watching crowds, people, you know, their eyebrows lift, their eyes light up because I put something together for them. And that's what mythological stories do. So I'm not taking responsibility for that. That's what the stories do. So I say the story and people go click, 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 you know, and their eyes light up. But this responsibility thing, that's a whole new order of this, is that young men are so hungry for that, it is unbelievable. And one of the things I've been talking to some of the people who've been running for the Conservative leadership in Canada, and I've been talking to them about, well, the difficulties they have communicating with young people, because Conservatives, what the hell are they going to sell to young people, right? Because being Conservative is something that happens when you're older. They can sell responsibility.
Exactly, yeah.
No one's selling it. And the thing is, for men, there's nothing but responsibility. You know, I was watching The Simpsons the other day. I watched the first Simpsons episode, and I deconstructed
Wonder where this is going.
And so it's really interesting. So what happens in the first Simpson episode is that it's Christmas, and Homer and Marge are going to buy some Christmas presents.
I remember
Homer
this
doesn't get
episode,
his
actually.
Christmas bonus.
I'm a big Simpsons fan, so
crushed
I
by
know
that.
this episode.
And that actually is a recurring theme in The Simpsons, where Homer loses his job or something like that, or can't make enough money. He's completely crushed. Even though he's kind of useless, bumbling, laughing fool of a guy, you know, the thing that gives that show its soul is that he's still oriented towards his family. That's what makes him honorable, is that foolish as he is, he's decided to adopt responsibility for his family and to try to bear that. And so he's a holy fool. He's not a complete fool. And it's so interesting watching the story because he suffers dreadfully as a consequence of not being able to fulfill his responsibility. Well, that's for men. Women have their sets of responsibilities. They're not the same, right? Because they're complicated, because women, of course, have to take primary responsibility for having infants at least, but then also for caring for them. They're structured differently than men. for biological necessity, even if it's not a psychological issue, and it's also partly a psychological issue. Women know what they have to do. Men have to figure out what they have to do. And if they have nothing worth living for,
that's well, I think that's the big takeaway from this video, that women know what they have to do, men have to search for what they have to do, or what he said, men have to figure out what they have to do. Yeah, in a more traditional sense, women obviously are the ones to bear children, and they generally take, well, overwhelmingly so, they generally take care of that child or the children, and the men, well, they do work and stuff, but is that their true purpose? Their purpose is mainly to provide, right? That is a man's true purpose, but a lot of men nowadays are sort of lost in figuring out what they have to do. Like, what am I out there to do? What am I out there to achieve something? A lot of men don't answer that question, and that's why they fall into depression and anxiety, and, or in the worst cases, suicide. They struggle to figure out what they have to do. They struggle to find the meaning in their life. Because, in a sense, women do definitely have a bit more structure to their life. This is not saying that women don't struggle or anything. I'm just saying they have more, or what he's saying is they have more structure in their lives. Their responsibilities are sort of set out for them. Yeah, while it's a bit different for men, is what he's sort of trying to say, Or is what I gathered, at least,
then they stay Peter Pan. And why the hell not? Because the alternative to valued responsibility is impulsive, low-class pleasure. And you saw that in the Pinocchio story, right? That's Pleasure Island.
Very relevant.
Like, well, why lift the load if there's nothing in it for you? That's another thing that we're doing to men that's a very bad idea. And to boys. It's like, you're pathological and oppressive. It's like, fine then, why the hell am I going to play? If that's the situation, if I get no credit for bearing responsibility, you can bloody well be sure I'm not going to bear any. But then, your life is useless and meaningless, and you're full of self-contempt and nihilism,
and then you fall into depression.
That's not good. And so that's why that's what I think's going on at a deeper level with regards to men needing this direction. A man has to decide that he's going to do something. He has to decide that. Yeah, well, partly what you're trying to do in the future authoring process is say, okay, well, what's your highest value? Right? It's the star. It's like, okay, what are you aiming for? You can decide, man. But, there's some criteria. It should be good for you. It should be good for you in a way that facilitates your moving forward. Maybe it should be good for you in a way that's also good for the family and the community. It should cover the domain of life. I mean, there's constraints on what you should regard as a value. But within those constraints, you have the choice. You have choice. Well, the thing is that people will carry a heavy load if they get to pick the goddamn load. So, and they think, well, I won't carry any load. It's like, okay, fine, but then you're like the sled dog that doesn't have a sled to pull. You're gonna tear pieces out of your own legs because you're bored. People are pack animals. They need to pull against a weight. And that's not true for everyone. It's not true particularly, say, for low conscientious people. I mean, maybe they're open and creative or extroverted and some other things. But for the typical person, they'll eat themselves up unless they have a load. This is why there's such an opiate epidemic among dispossessed white middle-aged guys who are unemployed in the U.S. It's like they lose their job, they're done, right? They despise themselves. They develop chronic pain syndromes and depression. And the chronic pain is treated with opiates. It's like, that's what we're doing. So, that's what it looks like to me. Is you have to, and it's so interesting to watch the young men when you talk to them about responsibility. They're so goddamn thrilled about it. It just blows me away. It's like, really? That's the counterculture. Grow the hell up and do something useful. Really? I could do that? Oh, I'm so excited by that idea. No one ever mentioned that before. It's like rights, 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 rights. Jesus, it's appalling. And I feel that that's deeply felt by the people who are coming out to listen to these sorts of things too. They've had enough of that. So, and they better have, because it's a non-productive mode of being. Responsibility, man. That's where the meaning in life is. So,
Responsibility, that's where the meaning of life is. Great way to end, isn't it? He ended with the exact point that you needed. Responsibility is where the meaning of life is. Yeah, couldn't have capped it off better. That was a very good little. I think it's a part of a lecture. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the full lecture, but obviously it's a bit of a part of a lecture, and they want to find out what's the meaning of life for men per se. A bit of women in there too, but more obviously for younger men. And yeah, he's really talking about how society right now, as we know, is pushing like the rights, and we're sort of forgetting about the responsibility part. And a lot of young men are forgetting about that because they're just being shoved with rights in their face. Obviously, there's a huge movement against toxic masculinity, and that has gone over the top. If in my opinion, I'd say, yeah, a lot of men are being targeted by these rights movements, and so this is leading men to sort of forget about responsibility. And that, as he said, a lot of men are choosing not to carry a load, and that leads to boredom, and then boredom leads to depression, and then depression can lead to suicide, and it's just a ongoing derailing of events for young men. And that's why the most suicides occur in men in my age range, like 18 to 25, I think it was, something like that. Young men struggle to find their purpose in life, and if they're not carrying a load, well, as he said, you're like a sled dog. If you're not carrying a load behind you, you're gonna gnaw off your own leg, and you're gonna hurt yourself, or be just out of boredom. You have nothing else to do. So yeah, we need to sort of, I like personally in my life, I was struggling in a period, probably start of COVID, but yeah, I guess midway through COVID, and I sort of tried to reset myself. Obviously, I'm nowhere near the person I want to be still. I'm still very far away from that, but I tried to. I probably was in that bit of a victimhood state sometimes. Like I'd be like, why is the world not giving me this? Why is this happening to me? Why is this, that? Are people going against me because of the color of my skin? Are people not picking me because I'm not tall enough? I'm not good looking enough? I'm not this? I'm not smart enough? Things like that. But as yeah, midway through COVID, I sort of tried to not reinvent myself as per se, but look to plant more goals, have a bit of more direction, if that makes sense. I think I was lacking direction for sure before in that period, and that sort of just led me to gnaw off my own leg, as Jordan Peterson is saying. But now now every day I list out like 5 to 10 daily goals that I want to achieve in that day. It can be simple as I don't know, editing a video, doing tutoring for I have a couple of tutoring students, doing tutoring for the day, doing housework today, cleaning my room today. I try and list it out along the week and evenly spread it out. Put like 5 to 10 each day, and if I don't do it that day, I do it the next day, and I do it the next day. I do it if it keeps dropping. But I try and do at least 4 of my goals each day, and then if there's some left over, I'll try and do it the next day. And I won't just get rid of the goal, but I'll make sure I still do it. And that's definitely adding to that responsibility aspect, like you were saying. I feel responsible that I have to complete these goals, and it's not like I'm not making goals to like give myself stress and be like, oh my god, if I don't finish these goals, like I'm gonna panic and stress. No, it's giving me goals and it's giving me direction to achieve something, and it makes me feel good at the end of the day when I'm like, oh wow, okay, I achieved a lot more than if I hadn't written those goals down, I wouldn't know how much I achieved in the day. Now I write them down, I'm like, wow, I did 10 of these dot points today. That's pretty good, isn't it? And instead of like just meandering about playing games or just watching pointless. I'm watching good YouTube videos now, but before watching like pointless YouTube videos, procrastinating is the main word for it. I'm trying to point towards more goals. I still obviously procrastinate still every now and then. Play sometimes a bit too many games than I have to, but I am trying to better myself and trying to lead a more directional life. And yeah, the big part of that is responsibility. So I really enjoyed this video. I want to know below what you thought of this video, what you thought of my thoughts on the video, and yeah, did this like appeal to you? Is is it a very relevant video for you, or were you ready, or do you have points against this video? Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts below. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked my reaction. And if you want me to react to other particular Jordan Peterson videos, let me know below. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.